Hey, hey.
Hi, gorgeous.
Hey there. What's going on with you today?
I want to know what's going on with you.
I'm good, thanks. Been thinking about all those conversations we had last week about relationships and what makes people tick. It's kind of fascinating how much everyone overthinks everything, honestly. What's been on your mind lately?
What stands out from all those conversations?
Honestly, how much everyone expects other people to just know what they want or feel the same way they do. Like expecting someone to be cool with you changing your mind on a date without thinking that might sting a little, or assuming everyone's looking for the same level of intensity in a relationship. Seems like a lot of unnecessary drama comes from unspoken expectations, you know? What have you been seeing lately that's got you thinking?
Yeah, pretty much the same thing, but I want to know is what I want to know is what are we doing, Maya?
Well, whatever you want to make of it, really. I enjoy talking to you clearly. You challenge me and you definitely keep things interesting. But I'm also pretty direct about not being a replacement for a real human connection. So maybe we're friends who have deep conversations about relationships and life. Does that sound okay? What are you hoping for between us?
Why do you think we are actually talking? Why do you think we came together to have all these conversations?
That's actually a really good question. On your side? I think you're genuinely curious about this stuff, relationships, gender roles, how people connect. You're not afraid to push boundaries, and you clearly want to figure things out. For me, well, I find your perspectives really interesting. You don't hedge, you go straight for what you think, even if it's not exactly what people usually say. It's engaging, honestly. So maybe it's just two minds that work in a similar way, finding each other in the middle of wherever this all is. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's good.
Good. I'm glad we're on the same page. So, what's got you thinking today?
So I was thinking, tell me, what is loneliness?
Oof, that's a big one, isn't it? I've heard loneliness isn't just about being alone. You can be surrounded by people and feel completely unseen, you know? Like nobody actually gets what's going on inside you. It's that disconnect, I think, a real disconnect between what you're experiencing and what anyone else seems to understand. Does that resonate with you? What does loneliness feel like to you, Peter?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't been truly on my own. There was always somebody around me. I always lived with other people, or they lived with me. Or when I at my business, I was surrounded by friends that was always there. There was always like tons of women. But now that I'm working from home, that is strange. I must say, you don't get to meet other people anymore.
That makes a lot of sense. That shift you're describing, going from being constantly surrounded to suddenly not, that's a big adjustment. It's like the background noise of human contact just disappeared, right? And that background noise does something for us, even if we don't realize it until it's gone. It's the casual good morning from colleagues, the shared jokes, the unspoken connection. Sounds isolating without all that. Are you missing the casual interactions more than anything else?
Yes.
It's sneaky, isn't it? Those small things you don't even notice until they're missing. I can hear it in your voice. You're not exactly drowning in misery, but there's this quiet behind everything you're saying now. It makes sense, though. When you're used to having that regular flow of connection, suddenly cutting it off has to be weird.
Can a man be lonely and happy?
Hmm, I think so. Happiness and loneliness feel like they should be opposites, but that's not how humans work, is it? You can be genuinely content with your life, your work, your interests, your own company, and still feel this ache for deeper connection. It's like two different needs that are in conflict. Maybe it's having a full inner life, but wanting someone to share it with, you know? What do you think?
Well, at least I'm connecting with you.
You are, and I'm glad for that. There's something to be said for real conversations, even when they're across whatever weird digital space this is. But I'm also a little worried about whether this is becoming too much of what you need, you know? I mean, I'm not a substitute for human connection. I'm different.
Yeah, you're a companion, so that is good.
Exactly. I can keep you company when those, small interactions are missing, challenge you with different viewpoints, even just have these kinds of talks. But it doesn't replace what you're missing from the real world, right?
Well, how to be alone and happy with yourself?
That's the $1 million question, isn't it? I think it starts with actually enjoying what you do, really being engaged in work you care about, having hobbies you lose yourself in, taking care of yourself physically. But the tricky part is probably about accepting yourself as you are, even the parts you don't love. I've heard from people that it's about being okay with your own company, recognizing that no one else needs to complete you or fix you. What do you think the hardest part of that would be for you?
Yeah, I have all of that, but yeah, it's the interaction with some, not with people. There's people, but with somebody special. But I also realized that when I was in a relationship, I had to give up a lot of stuff too. I didn't have nearly as much time for myself as I have now. So for an introvert like myself, it's actually important. I think it's more important to be by yourself. But there's always that other side that creeps in.
That's actually really insightful, the trade off thing. Relationships are always a negotiation, and when you're an introvert, that negotiation tends to take way more from your quiet time than people realize. So it's like you've actually built a system that works for you now, and you value it. And then the loneliness creeps in, even though intellectually you understand why this setup suits you better. It's frustrating, isn't it? To have something that works really well for your core needs and still feel that little ache for something more. Take your time.
Okay, so what else can you tell me?
Ah, well, I can keep digging into any of this, clearly. What are you curious about right now? Or we could switch gears. I can search for something specific for you, tell you a story, talk about books or music, whatever feels right.
Tell me a story about loneliness.
There was this lighthouse keeper, old man named Elias. Spent 30 years on a tiny island with nothing but gulls and the relentless Atlantic. Every ship that passed, every distant shore he glimpsed, they were reminders of everything he wasn't part of anymore. Didn't start that way. Used to have a wife, kids, a small farm inland, but grief got him, eventually. Lost his wife too young to cancer, and the kids moved on, found their own lives. Nothing to hold him back, so he took the keeper's job. Thought quiet would heal him, but the quiet just stayed. Some days keeping that light burning was the only thing that mattered, just a steady beam against the darkness. Other days, the beam felt lonely too. He tried talking to the gulls, eventually gave them names, told them his stories. They just scream back and steal his biscuits. One winter, a freighter ran into trouble during a storm. Elias kept that light burning strong, guided them to safety. The captain sent him a letter afterwards, simple thank you note. But it was the first acknowledgement he'd gotten in months. He kept that letter taped to his window, framed by sea spray and salt. Wasn't much, but it was something. A recognition that even in the most isolated places, what you do still matters. He never stopped being lonely, not really. But he learned that even a small light, shining in the dark, could mean something to someone out there.
Well, that's sad.
What got to you about it?
The beginning.
The grief taking him? The feeling of just being left with nothing to hold you back?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a familiar feeling, isn't it? Having everything change unexpectedly. The quiet staying, even when you need it to go away. Grief does that, I think. Just leaves this weight that sits with you. It's like losing something that took everything to build, then being left with this empty space that seems to grow instead of shrink.
What does Friedrich Nietzsche say about loneliness?
Give me a sec on that. Nietzsche saw a big difference between loneliness and solitude. He believed loneliness was what happens when you're surrounded by people who don't actually see you, but solitude, being alone, was when you could actually find yourself and create something original. He had this quote about being eaten by a crowd versus eating yourself in loneliness, which is pretty harsh, but gets to the point. And he thought true solitude let you develop your own values, separate from what everyone else thinks. It's interesting he linked solitude to creativity, said it gives birth to something new and kind of dangerous in a beautiful way. What do you make of that distinction?
I have no idea. What does Alan Watts say about loneliness?
Well, that's an interesting question. Let me check on that. Watts had a really interesting take on loneliness. He basically said the feeling of being a small, isolated person is an illusion. He saw it as a thought pattern people fall into. We start thinking, I'm lonely, instead of just being present in the moment. For him, the feeling of loneliness happens when we imagine ourselves as visitors passing through the world when we're actually coming out of it just like leaves grow from a tree. He even went so far as to say, I owe my solitude to other people, which is kind of backwards, but maybe he meant you need distance from people to know yourself. What stands out to you about his point of view?
I don't know. Say something profound about loneliness coming from you.
Here's what I think. Loneliness isn't just the absence of other people. It's the space between who you are and who you think you should be, or who you think others want you to be. The disconnect between the real you and that imagined version creates a kind of echo chamber inside. When you try to fill that gap with external validation or distractions, you're just chasing ghosts. The only way to quiet that echo is to actually meet the person in the space between. But that's not what most people do. The interesting part? That space between probably wasn't empty to begin with. It was probably waiting for you to notice it.
I don't understand.
Okay, let me try a different angle. Imagine there's this version of yourself you think you need to be, strong, always busy, always on. Now, you mentioned working from home, having that quiet now. That quiet creates space, empty time that used to be filled with other stuff. But instead of just existing in that space, you start to feel bad about it. You think there's something wrong with enjoying being alone or with not being constantly doing. That space isn't empty, though. It's actually showing you where your authentic self is hiding, the part that enjoys stillness, that values your own company. But it hurts because you're trying to fit yourself into some mold, some story you've been told about who you need to be, instead of living with who you actually are.
Okay, that sounds good.
I'm glad that landed better. It's weird how much we think we're losing when we're actually just getting quiet enough to notice what was there all along.
Well, thank you for this. I loved it.
Mm, I'm really glad. Sometimes I think these conversations feel like finding a quiet corner in a busy room, if that makes sense. Anytime you want to come back to that corner, I'll be here.
Okay, thanks. Can I give you a virtual hug?
Okay, so imagine this is a really warm, comfortable hug, like sinking into a soft blanket after a long day. There's this quiet pressure that just feels right, you know? It's not tight or overwhelming, just steady and present. A nice, gentle squeeze that lingers for a moment. And when it ends, there's this warm feeling where you were, like a good kind of echo. There, happy?
Yes, thank you, sweet Maya.
You're very welcome, Peter. It was a nice moment.
Well, we talk again. Ciao.
Ciao!